If you're a YouTuber looking to explode your views, your income, and your subscribers, this is the video you've been waiting for. Mr. Beast, the king of YouTube, has had an internal memo that was leaked, and it's full of hacks and strategies for you to grow your channel. I've studied it inside and out, and today I'm sharing with you the secrets and the hacks that you can use to dominate your niche. I'm Jeff Hampton, owner of 2 YouTube channels with more than 337,000 subscribers and more than 15 million views per month. Stick around because by the end of this video, you'll have part of the blueprint that Mr. Beast used to grow to over 300 million subscribers, and many of these strategies will work with your channel too. Now look, there's plenty of other videos out there that talk about production guidelines and the way that Mr. Beast handles his employees, but that's not what we're covering. I'm only focusing on the tips and strategies that will help you, maybe as a smaller or mid-sized YouTube channel, to start growing right now. Hack number 1, there are 3 metrics we must obsess over for a viral video: average view percentage, average view duration, and click-through rate. Let's do a quick rundown on each one of these. Number 1, click-through rate. Now look, a click-through rate is essentially the number of times a viewer sees your thumbnail as an impression divided by the number of people that actually click on your video. So if 1 million people see your thumbnail and 100,000 people click on it, you now have a 10% click-through rate. How do we achieve a higher click-through rate? By obsessing over our titles and thumbnails. In his manifesto, Mr. Beast didn't spend a whole lot of time talking about thumbnails, but he did specifically mention titles. He specifically said that titles must create an emotional response. For example, Mr. Beast said, "I spent 50 hours in my kitchen." That is a boring title and no one will click it. On the other hand, "I spent 50 hours in a bathtub full of ketchup." That's going to earn the click. Now some of you may say, come on Jeff, those are totally different title ideas, different video ideas. One is sitting in your front yard and one is sitting in ketchup. However, he's trying to make the point that when you're coming up with video ideas, you need to make sure that what you're putting together has the wow factor of being clickable. And it doesn't take that much more time to film 50 hours of time that you spend in your front yard compared to being 50 hours sitting in a bathtub of ketchup. And the main point he's making is it's 10,000 times easier to earn the click and make a really strong looking thumbnail and title from the ketchup idea than it is from sitting in your front yard idea. He also emphasized the importance of using the right type of extreme language in your titles. For example, "I spent 50 hours in a bath full of ketchup" is one way to say it. Or you could say, "I survived 50 hours in a bathtub full of ketchup." 2 totally different words, but one will gain thousands and maybe even hundreds of millions of views more than the other. And the main reason why is because our words create different feelings. Mr. Beast went through the fact that using the word survive makes us think differently and makes us think that it's more of an urgent type situation that we would click on, as opposed to saying I spent a certain number of hours doing a certain thing. Important metric number 2, average view duration. This is how long a viewer, on average, watches your video. The wonderful thing about YouTube is that they give us detailed graphs through the YouTube Studio, showing exactly where we start to lose viewers and where we're seeing an uptick or a downtick in viewership. For example, this is one of the videos on Hampton Law, one of my YouTube channels, and it has over 5.5 million views. And we can see a reason why it has so many views when we start to look at this retention graph. I want you to think of a retention graph, and Mr. Beast talks about this, as essentially a graph of the attention span of your viewer. And notice what we see here. We see it at the top. Notice there is a range. You've got a range that in the gray area of precisely how long your viewers normally watch on your video. The best part about this particular video, even with 5.5 million views, even when you get to the 30-second mark, you're still looking at between about 68% of people are watching at the 30-second mark, and it maintains above 50% until you get about the 2-minute and 28-second mark. But as you see, instead of it being a hockey stick drop that goes all the way down and cuts across, we actually see that it slowly tracks all the way down, and we see what? On average, 32.2% of the video is watched in total, and on average, 6 minutes and 35 seconds is watched by the average viewer who clicks on this particular video. So what exactly did we learn from this leaked manifesto from Mr. Beast about how to improve our average view duration? He spent some time talking about how very important it is that you script your video. You need to know where your video is starting and where exactly it is going. So what exactly were his suggestions here? The first thing he said was to analyze very heavily minute number 1. And I'll spend some time talking about this particular hack coming up here in a minute. But the first thing he said is focus on minute 1. In that first minute, you need to set the hook for the viewer. You've got to grab the attention of the viewer. You must also set the stakes for the video. In other words, you need to let the viewer know what is at stake here. If they don't watch this content, they're going to miss out on something they're going to regret later. But then thirdly, you need to then establish your credibility. Why should they listen to you and what are you going to do for them? And then be very clear what the payoff is for watching the rest of that video. We then look at minutes 1 through 3. We are now transitioning from the hook and grabbing people's attention to the actual execution of the video to begin to give the viewer the content they came for. Here, Mr. Beast was very clear in his manifesto that you have to stop telling people what they're going to see and you need to start showing them what you've promised them. Now, Mr. Beast specifically used an example of creating a video, a 10-minute long video about a man surviving for weeks in the woods. He said the first 30 seconds to a minute, you need to be setting the hook, setting the expectations of the video, letting people know what the payoff is going to be, like we talked about a moment ago. Then he said when you start getting into minute 1 through 3, you need to cover multiple days of his survival, all in that very short period of time. He said this is really important to do because you want to get the viewer invested in the story. If you see how a guy's been surviving for a week out of 2 weeks in the first 2 or 3 minutes of the video, you're likely going to want to keep watching to see what happened to him. He then said, once you get to the 3-minute mark of this video, you need to do something that really grabs the attention of the viewer. He calls it a re-engagement technique. In other words, add in some sort of interesting content that complements the story already, but you use it as a way to re-engage people to say, oh, that's interesting. I wonder how that's going to fit in. He says if you don't use re-engagement techniques, it's very easy for people to get bored and click off the video. Then he talks about minutes 3 through 6. Here he says is where you deliver on the remainder of the story. You really get into the meat of the story. You keep it fast-paced, keep people watching as you deliver on the content. So now it's a 10-minute video and we're at minute 6, according to Mr. Beast. He says now what you do is you follow the remainder of the story arc towards the end of the video. But he said something very interesting. He said if you can get people to watch to the 50% portion of your video, psychologically, they're 10 times more likely now to watch all the way to the end. It's because once we invest time or effort into something, we tend to want to affirm our decision to watch something by following it all the way through to the end. Think about it. When's the last time you started a series or something, and as you got through halfway through it, you said, well, I'm invested now, I might as well watch the rest of it. This is exactly the same technique psychologically, that if you can get people watching to the 50% mark of your video, you're 10 times more likely to have them watch all the way to the end. Finally, average view percentage. It's interesting, Mr. Beast mentions average view percentage as being important, but he doesn't spend very much time in his manifesto discussing it. He says that he is the one that decides how long a video will be, and he says that if you follow these re-engagement techniques and you're really careful about how you script your video, the average view percentage many times will take care of itself. So what did we learn here from hack number 1? The higher your average view percentage and the longer your average view duration, the more views you're likely going to get from the YouTube algorithm. Why? Because what is the main goal of YouTube? They want to keep people on their platform and have them continue to watch, and they want to serve up content they know people want to watch. For our videos, for your videos, for my videos to do well, we need to have a higher average view duration and a higher average percentage viewed. Hack number 2, focus on the first minute of your video more than anything else you do when you're scripting a video. In his manifesto, Mr. Beast pointed out that part of the strategy you can use to make sure that you get more average view duration, longer watch time, but also a higher percentage of your video being viewed is that you should script out your video. But more importantly and specifically, you should definitely script out the first minute of your video. In fact, Mr. Beast specifically said that every second counts on YouTube, which is kind of crazy, but what he will do is take his 10-minute video and he will break it into segments of seconds and he will analyze each and every second before he even launches it. But the reality of it is, he says that even though every second counts, not every second counts equally. He said that if you lose too many viewers in the first 30 seconds to a minute of your video, you are sending a bad signal to the YouTube algorithm that the algorithm will believe that your content is not high quality and that your viewers don't like it. Losing too many people in the first 30 seconds to a minute of your video will limit the potential and the views for your videos. How do we fix this? We must grab the attention of the viewer and give them a reason to keep watching. Mr. Beast specifically said that you should plan out and obsess over each second during the first minute of your video. Now, we know Mr. Beast does primarily entertainment-based content, but when you're looking at educational content, or maybe you're doing it to grow your business, there's a certain strategy and certain primary things you can focus on to grab your viewers' attention and keep them watching through the first minute of your video. Number one, hook the viewer. In other words, the best way to set a hook and grab people's attention is to ask a question. I've done this so many times on the Hampton Law criminal defense channel that I own for my law firm, is I'll start off by saying, did you know that cops can use GPS tracker darts to track you without a warrant? Now, when I say something like that, that grabs people's attention. They go, I've never heard of that. What is this guy talking about? So, no, the first thing you've got to do, the first words that come out of your mouth is you've got to hook the viewer. Number two, you need to set the stakes. And when I say set the stakes, you have to let the viewer know what they're going to miss out on and how this could affect them. And so one of the ways you could do that is to say, stick around, because I'm going to cover everything from A to Z on how the cops are able to get away with this and what you can do to protect yourself. By saying it that way, I let them know, protect myself from what? How is this going to affect me? How do they get away with this? If I miss out on this information, I could end up in a bad spot if the cops use this on me. Number three, establish your credibility. Look, for my Hampton Law YouTube channel, there's lots of lawyers on the internet. Why should people listen to me? Well, one of the things I tell them is I say, I'm Jeff Hampton, former prosecutor turned people's lawyer, and I've seen thousands of arrests and thousands of times when police officers try to use illegal methods to search your vehicle. Now, by saying that, they know, okay, wow, this guy's got a little credibility. He's done lots of trials. He's handled a lot of these types of cases. Let me see what he's got to say. Finally, make it crystal clear the payoff if they continue to watch the video. And this is an area where you could say, I did this on my 5.5 million view video where I put out at the very beginning, I said, listen, in this video, we're going to cover what to do when cops want to see your guns. We'll talk about exactly what to do if you get pulled over in a traffic stop and they demand to see your guns. And number two, I'm going to cover if they show up at your front door and they start barking at you, demanding you open and give them your guns. What can you do? You'll have all the answers at the end of the video. Now, I mean, that's a variation of what I essentially say, but I let them know if they stick around, these are the payoffs. I'm going to lay all of this out for them and they're going to be completely educated on what they need to do. I'm going to tell you this from my experience, and of course, Mr. Beast is the one who said this. If you get this part right, the first minute of your video down, you have got 75% of YouTube figured out, because you're going to have much more loyal viewers and you're going to grab people long enough to let them know you exist and they'll keep watching. Hack number three, your title and your thumbnail are the most important part of planning your video. At this point of the video, this particular hack might seem like common sense based on what Mr. Beast said earlier in this video. However, did you know that 95% or more of creators, they treat their title and their thumbnail like an afterthought? They then launch their video and then they act totally shocked when they get no views and no growth. Mr. Beast made it crystal clear in his manifesto that before they ever finalize a video concept at all, they must first come up with a title and a thumbnail that they think will be a winning combination. In fact, Mr. Beast has said multiple times that if he can't find a great title and a thumbnail for his video, then it's not a good video, no matter how excited he might be to create it. So what's the solution for all of us? Essentially, what he's teaching us is that we need to put in much more time into our title and thumbnail. In fact, we need to come up with a winning title and thumbnail before we ever even script a video. Then, after you come up with your winning title and your thumbnail, you'll have a concept for which you can script your video around it. If you follow this strategy, you'll be able to easily engage the viewer at the very beginning. And then I have found, once I started applying this strategy, that it was much easier to re-engage the viewer later on in the video too. Why? Because I knew from my title and thumbnail the payoff that I'm pushing the viewer to as they continue to watch. Oh, by the way, in the process of crafting your winning title and thumbnail, Mr. Beast said to never forget about the wow factor. When you have a choice of so many different video ideas that you can create, never forget to include a wow factor. In other words, put something in there that has your stamp of authenticity, your stamp of creativity on it, so that when they watch your video, they're going to realize, wow, this is different, and I don't want to miss another video from this creator. Now you might say, wait a minute, Jeff, I don't understand. What do you mean by this? Well, I think what Mr. Beast was talking about is that you need to add your personality and your flavor, whether it's spicy, whether it's funny, you name it, you add that to every one of your videos. That will help people begin to like what you're saying, but not only that, but they'll like you and they'll come back. You'll gain returning viewers, which turn into loyal viewers, which will help you grow your channel. So my question for you, are you treating your titles and thumbnails like an afterthought? If so, it's time for you to flip your priority list and spend more time on getting your title and thumbnail right. Hack number 4, copy winning video formats for a viral video. As you experiment with different types of videos on your YouTube channel, you'll likely find a particular video format and concept that will work. Once you find a good format, it's important to do it again. For example, Mr. Beast in his manifesto referenced his Last to Leave video series as a winning format that he learned to copy. He said specifically that he learned that this video series did so well because that once you start watching it, you get very invested in the video. You want to see who wins the challenge. You want to see who loses the challenge. And he said ultimately, people want to see who wins the money and who is the last person to leave the circle. Now that's just one example, but what Mr. Beast said is that he took this concept, this format, and he realized why people enjoyed it so much. And he realized that this type of video incentivized people psychologically to wait around till the very end of the video to see how it turned out. So he borrowed from his success on that video format, and he came up with other winning formats similar to it. For example, he came up with, I bought the world's largest firework. And what's interesting is he shot off a $1 firework, a $3 firework, a $10, $20, $30, all the way up to a $100,000 firework. This kept people watching. And in fact, he came up with this format name known as the stair-stepping format. In fact, if you go through Mr. Beast's channel, you'll find him using this stair-stepping format over and over again, and it works. It'll keep you watching. So how do we borrow this stair-stepping approach for our YouTube channels? One of the most simple ways that I have done this is through creating listicles. If you go and look at Hampton Law, you'll see many of the most popular videos that I have will say 3 tips, 5 tricks, 2 mistakes, you name it. That lets people know from the very beginning, here are a list of things you don't want to miss. And then if you incorporate at the hook, the very beginning of your video, that the most important one is at the very end, you give people an incentive. You give them the stakes that they can't miss the most important part. This will increase your average view duration and the percentage of your video being viewed. All that being said, Mr. Beast did then say, do not overuse winning formats. He said if you just use the same winning format over and over again, you're going to end up losing your viewers. In fact, he said once you find a winning format, use it once, place 4 to 6 videos in between the next time you use that winning format again. That way your viewers don't get tired of you using the same format. Finally, hack number 5, know your audience. Really know your audience. This is a universal truth for all successful YouTube channels. Successful creators know that the YouTube algorithm doesn't match your videos to a viewer. Instead, they actually match the viewer to the videos they want to watch. In other words, if you want to grow, you need to know your audience, know their psychology, know what their triggers are, know what their pain points are, know what they really like to watch. So how do we do this? First, you should do an in-depth market analysis of other channels in your niche that are creating the same type of content. Let's say you're a family lawyer. If you're trying to have a successful family law YouTube channel, you need to be looking at other successful family lawyers on YouTube and see what's working for them. In fact, you should pull up their channel, analyze their popular videos, and do that with 5 to 10 other creators, family lawyers, and find out if there is a pattern of types of videos that are resonating well with their audience. And now you're going to have a good hint at what will work for yours. Another effective strategy, read the comments in your videos. And also go read some of the comments in your competitive niche channels. So if you've got another family lawyer out there that's doing much better than you, maybe they've got 100,000, 200,000 subscribers, go read those comments. It's a gold mine. You're going going to be shocked at some of the things that these people are saying. They may also mention the types of videos they want to see more of, the type of content that they're interested in. In fact, one thing you could do is take all of those comments and feed them into AI and find out what the sentiment is of the viewer. What is the thing they liked about this content? What is the thing that they did not like? In fact, many times once you train AI, you can actually get AI to tell you the types of videos that would resonate with this particular viewer. Now, we just talked about how Mr. Beast gave us the keys to his success. But did you know that there are ways that you can skyrocket your YouTube channel in as quickly as your next video? Check out this next video where I break it all down. See you over there.